Hi, Victoria. How are you?
Hi, Elliot. I'm great. How are you?
I'm, excuse me, I'm doing really well. Man, you have, sorry with the cough. I'm choking on myself there. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'm gonna
Uh,
drink some
y-
coffee.
yeah. Oh, coffee is
Mm,
amazing. I agree with you. Are
I
you a
love it.
coffee snob?
No, I'm not actually. My
Okay.
now my uh new to coffee drinker husband kind of is a coffee snob. So we have our little ritual in the morning. Whoever wakes up first, usually it's me, but lately it's been him, makes the fresh pot of coffee. And
So when I
typically
ask, is it
there's
a coffee snob? Is it like Folgers and stuff like that? Or is it like good coffee?
it's definitely better than average. It's not
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
top of the line stuff, but it's better than average. But I will
Gotcha.
actually, when I say I'm not a coffee snob, I'll do something kind of nobody does. I like to salvage every last drop of coffee that's in that pot. So if there's still some left over from yesterday, I'll put it in my cup and microwave it. But he won't do that. So
Look, I'm a coffee snob. So whenever this topic comes up, we talk about coffee for a sec. Sorry. So I'm a full on yeah, I have two grinders in my house, one for
mm,
espresso and one for
mhm.
coffee. So yeah, I'm all about that life.
Yeah, I can appreciate that for sure. I mean, good coffee is good. I'm probably just too lazy to be a coffee snob when it comes to the coffee
Look,
stuff.
it's
I'm
just
not
whatever
lazy
you're
in
in.
general, but
Right. You can
lazy
only
about my
put your effort
coffee.
towards you can only put your effort towards so many things, right? So
Exactly.
um man, I'm looking behind you and seeing all of these books,
Mm.
one, The Ultimate Weight Loss. The one that I think that one, the ultimate weight loss power intrigues me the most. And maybe it's because I can't lose any weight right now. I would love to hear about like what like I mean, obviously I'm hoping that's more than like, yeah, exercise and diet, because we all know that that is the key, right? Like
Yeah,
you can't eat more than you burn. And if you do that, you're
it's
you're not going to lose
science.
weight.
It's
Right. Yeah, there
science,
is there yes. But I'm going to assume
But
that's going to be more about the psychology.
it's definitely about the psychology, because ultimately, well, part of it is just the fact that we know to do these things, right? We know to eat to 1500, if that's your limit, calorie diet a day that is, well balanced. And we know to exercise, we know to drink all of our water. We know to just the things that we know to do, but we don't necessarily do them. And so
Hmm.
hypnosis helps to befriend your subconscious mind. And it also, there's in that book, there's 12 different sessions. And so each of the sessions is kind of on a different aspect of weight loss, because it's actually kind of complex. And sometimes we have to, one of the sessions in there is about getting rid of the core beliefs that, or changing the core beliefs that are behind you, continuing to sabotage your diet. And a lot of times, especially for women who, maybe have had had something bad happen to them because of their good looks or because of their body, they'll actually keep a little weight on, and it's really a subconscious protection, is why people do that. And that, that's not for everyone, but that can be one of the reasons that people keep extra weight on. And sometimes, people, and the other thing too is they just don't have the identity. A lot of it is about just changing your identity and you have to become the person and act as if you've already lost this weight. And so how, it's about changing your identity as well.
I want to talk about two things that you just said there. One, that last one, this act as if piece, right? Like it's so hard for us because sometimes we want to be this other person, and we can leave the weight loss realm here. And part of it is just acting the part now, right? Like almost like assuming the power that you are this person already. So therefore it's already true. And then it starts to become more true.
Exactly. And that's one of the big things that Neville Goddard really talked about. I don't know if you're familiar with his body of work, but he was, kind of a minister in this regard, way back in the 20s or so. And there's a lot of really great old tapes that people have, they've sort of resurfaced a lot lately since people are talking about manifestation. And he talks about the law of assumption. And the law of assumption is, very much like what we were talking about, the act as if. And it's really, just allowing yourself to really step into that energy and that vibration and that being of how you would really be. Because here's the thing, you can manifest anything. You really can. But you have to get yourself to believe it. And that's really what it really comes down to. Every manifestation technique, every book that you're reading, everything that you're doing to ultimately change yourself is ultimately just designed to change your subconscious beliefs. And the subconscious mind is actually, it's very sophisticated, but it doesn't have any conscious decision-making abilities, right? It doesn't have any ability to decide for you what you want or what's good for you. It just takes in the information that we feed to it, and it acts based on that information. So if we can get the subconscious mind into a state of belief, if we can, and it does that by visualizing, by speaking to yourself in certain ways, by actually doing the things that you would be doing if you had that thing, you trick ultimately the subconscious mind into buying in and believing. And then once it believes, its job is to bring that to fruition.
This hypnosis thing that you touched on earlier, and this idea of belief, and I'm assuming you combine the two, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What because most of us think when we think about hypnosis, they wave the rod in front of your face, and now you go into a trance, and then when I snap my fingers, you come back out, and you're off in like la la land,
Yeah.
and unconscious of it,
Yeah.
while it's going on. No, right?
So that's what I want to address, is the unconscious part, because it looks like, all of that stuff is very showy. And I think a lot of what that is just all about this demonstration of the power of your mind. And, back when people first started learning about this power of your mind, they would call it mesmerism. And they actually thought that there was this fluid that would be transferred, this energy fluid that would be transferred from the hypnotist into the person being hypnotized. And so it's all kind of really, we've realized that it's really just about this placebo effect. And so all of that stuff, is just kind of for show. Really, you're in a heightened state of awareness. When you're being hypnotized, you are extremely aware of everything that is being said. You're just in a very heightened, focused state. And you're also usually in a very relaxed state. And so that relaxed state allows you to bypass that critical thinking that usually is saying things like, oh, that's not even possible for me. No, that's not going to happen. Who do you think you are? You don't deserve this, blah, blah, blah. So it's allowing you just to kind of set that aside so that the instructions to the subconscious mind can actually go in and become the new beliefs. So, so much of the mystery of hypnosis is really the person observing somebody being hypnotized. That what they're witnessing is far from what's actually happening.
That's interesting. So you're saying the mystique behind it is like me watching you hypnotize somebody else.
Exactly. And it looks like, oh my gosh, why would that person cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog or do all these silly things that we've seen hypnotists do on stage? Why would they do that if they weren't completely blissed out and out of their mind? But really, the mind can become very easily subservient under a state of hypnosis. You're aware of what's going on, but you're just in this kind of zone where it's like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll do that, and you're just able to kind of go along with it.
Right. How did you get here in this world? Like, what was your path to this kind of work?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So I started off, I kind of followed in my father's footsteps. My father was a stockbroker for about 30 years. And when I moved from Washington State to California, he gave me my first job, and it was just an office job. I was just like a Girl Friday, sort of like office manager. And I like to call myself the office manager, not the Girl Friday. And
What's Girl Friday?
A Girl Friday is just somebody who runs errands and just does all the little things that no one else wants to do. Get the coffee, do the dry cleaning, all of that. And so I started off kind of doing that, and I sort of very quickly worked my way up to getting a completely separate job away from being, daddy's girl. And from there, about a half a dozen years later, I became a stockbroker. And so as a stockbroker, I just thought it was just like the coolest thing ever. And I loved that job. I really visualized myself and imagined myself and just doing everything that I could do to get that job. And then one day, I just completely felt like I lost interest, and I didn't know
literally one day you showed up one day, you were great, and the next day it was like, this is some bullshit.
It was just, I noticed it one morning. I think it had been leading up to it, and it was really growing underneath the surface. I just kind of one morning though, it was like, I'm supposed to be in the office at like 6:30 in the morning. And I was still in bed at 10 o'clock. And I just I didn't want to go in. It was almost kind of like that guy on Office Space when he got hypnotized, and it's like, I don't want to go to work anymore.
I think this is the reason I asked that question was because it's like, I love the movie Inception. Right. And it's realizing the thoughts. And we're kind of that's what you're kind of talking about there. When you first realized the thought, then it was over. You were just like, yep, nope, done.
Yes. Right? It was like out of I'm a high believer in integrity. And I almost just felt like this is going against what is not it wasn't a values thing. It was just that I knew that I could not do this anymore because there was something greater that I was meant for. And I just could not I couldn't tolerate it one more day, but I tolerated it for a little while. So I began to seek out a lot of personal development and, just to really figure out what's wrong with me. I mean, I can't exactly just quit my job. And then from there, I stumbled upon a hypnotherapy training because I had been doing all this personal growth. And during the personal growth classes, we would just do all these really cool visualizations, and they would just make you feel so empowered and so passionate. And it was just magical, some of the things that we were doing in these classes. And so I really felt like I wanted to be involved in that world somehow. And I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And so one day I just kind of thought, wouldn't it be cool if I just took all of these types of processes and I put them on these tapes, these recordings, and let people.
Oh, when was this? How long ago?
So that was in 1998 that I came up with that idea. Yeah, it was like 1990.
You said tapes, so tapes means a little
a
bit
long
ago.
time ago. Exactly. And so, and I would never call them tapes today, but when I sit in that moment in time, I'm there and I'm thinking
You're in
about
tapes,
cassette
right?
tapes.
Yeah,
I'm
for
in
sure. You still don't
cassette
use
tapes.
cassette tapes, I'm assuming.
Right. No, but you know what? My car actually still has a tape player, believe it or not. It's a 2008 Lexus, and it actually still has a tape player in there, which is
You have a
crazy.
14-year-old car?
I do. But here's the funny thing, and we'll revisit that
We'll
little
come back.
story.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, just as an aside, so, this was my dream car that I wanted like for, quite a number of years. And finally I got it. And now, I work from home. Okay. I go to CVS to get something. I go to Office Max to get something. I maybe go and get my hair done once or twice a month. My husband does most of the driving. And so the only time I ever really use my car, maybe I'll take the trip or two to Las Vegas, but it's like, I cannot justify getting another car. The car works great. I love it. And
And you're not a car person.
and I guess I'm just not a car person.
You're just not a car person. It's okay.
Yeah. And if I ever do get a new car, which I probably will in the next couple of years, it would be the exact same car, just the newest model, because I really, really like, I don't need a BMW or a Porsche or any of those. I mean, this is just like, I love this car. And so anyway, back to,
there you go. Yeah, go. Okay. It's just interesting. I just found it interesting, and people are different. And I totally get it. And then there's people that are car people and they like trade them out every other week.
Yeah. And it still feels kind of like new. I mean, there's like a couple little scrapes on it, but
I get it. All good. All right. So go back to the story.
It's really good. So anyway, getting back to that, I decided I was going to make these tapes. And I didn't exactly know if I was qualified to make these tapes or not. And so that's where I started doing all this little research. And I started thinking, well, like, how do you make a visualization script that's effective, and just like little things like that, meditation. I was calling it all kinds of things. And all of that search kind of led me to find this hypnosis school. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly right. I had at that time, I had actually read many different hypnosis books. It didn't even like the light didn't even turn on until I saw like, oh, this is something that you can get certified for. And so I signed up, and within a couple of weeks, I was taking this class, and within a few months I was certified, and I just kind of put one foot in front of the other. And most of the people, because I was living in Las Vegas at the time, most of the people that were, getting certified, they weren't like taking that next step to just like, okay, open up an office, get your business license, do all that. Well, I just decided I'm going to go full fledged and actually see clients as well, because I was seeing clients as a stockbroker. And so I'm just going to start seeing people who are much more inclined to want to talk about their personal life than their money anyway. And so I decided I'm going to go ahead and open an office and start actually practicing hypnosis with people. Well,
how did you attract people? Because I mean, how old are you at this point?
At that point, I guess I was about 28, 30, somewhere right around there. Let's see, 1998. I'm trying to do the math.
Yeah.
But somewhere around 28, 30, right around there. And
okay.
So, I think for me, because here I was as a stockbroker. And at that time, as a stockbroker, I had to make cold calls. Like that was my job as a stockbroker. Like for 4 hours, 5 hours straight a day, I had this little sheet and I had to make these 50 contacts a day, and 50 contacts would lead to six
that's so crazy to me
leads.
that's how you did it, because man, there's never been a time in my life where anybody called me that I didn't know to talk about money and I actually talked to them.
No,
like
I look back on
I would
it
never
now
do it.
I don't either. I don't
Like,
either.
and
I
people
like
do it all the
slam
time.
I know. And it's like, if I was who I am now and I tried to go back into that place, but I was just young and naive and motivated
Sure.
and
Hustling,
I think
hustling.
yes. And that naivety, I think the fact that like, you just don't even care about the rejection. It's just a number. You just know that's just a
Mhm.
numbers game. And you know that like you call 50 people. And when I say 50, it's not just the rings, but those are like actual people that say
50
hello,
answers.
you know,
Right.
and only 6 of those people could you make a little card for. So you make a little card for them. And then maybe 1 out of the 6 of those people would actually become a client. So you would get 1 client about every other day, and they would give you anywhere from $10,000 to $1 million to invest, with them, just depending on, yeah,
They gave you
seriously.
$1 million off a fucking phone call when they didn't know who you were.
Well, so I had my own like little way of doing that. I basically I wanted to manage their whole portfolio. So I would just say, like, how would you like to, come in and do this asset allocation thing with me, or how are you set up for
Okay,
your
so they didn't give you
retirement?
$1 million over the phone.
Right. If it wasn't
Okay,
usually like just directly like, here, give
got
me
it.
$1 million today. So it would be like a little process.
Got
And
it.
so I would do, and I would just really talk to them about like just managing their whole portfolio. And
Okay.
so they would come
Think about
in
how much
and
better you could be at that if you could hypnotize them.
I know. Actually, yeah, that would have been a really, really good thing to couple with the hypnosis. And, but as you can see, you can really easily get burnt out
Mhm.
on
Yeah, of
doing
course.
that job. And, by the time I left, I mean, I was making a 6-figure income. I had the corner office. I had, probably, I don't know, like $50 million under management. And I had a pretty good little thing going.
You were
But
doing
it
your
was,
thing. Yeah.
I was doing my thing and it was great. But then, I just got this other idea and it's like, this is what I want to, this is who I want to be now. And so what happened was when I went through this process of, getting my office together and everything and getting my business license, that is what really set everything in motion. Because when when I had to go through the process of getting my business license, they had to do this horrendous background check on me. And that led to my branch manager at the office that was my stockbroker job. That led to him getting the paperwork that they were doing to verify that I worked there. And so he calls me into his office and he says, Victoria, what is this paperwork? What are you doing? And he's like, are you opening up a business? And I'm like, yeah, and so he said that was a conflict of interest and that I had to make a decision. And so like, here we are, like literally, this is just a few months after I became certified. I had more business expenses at that time than I had actually business income being generated.
Mm-hmm.
And I had debts. I had a lease on, a long lease on this thing. I had Yellow Pages ads that I had just signed a contract on, other advertising I just signed a contract on. And I had all these commitments, and he's basically telling me that you've got 30 days to make a decision. And so I didn't tell him what I was doing. And I even kind of like had this idea that I was going to be able to give my client book to one of the other brokers in the office. And so we went around, I wasted the whole month going around and having meetings with my clients and introducing them to who was going to be their new broker and telling them that I was moving on. And so I sat down with branch manager at the 30-day mark and I said, hey, okay, I've made a decision and I'm going to have Shirley take over my book. And then, she's going to cut a deal with me. And that way I wouldn't have to starve to death and as I'm building my new business. And and that was the day I had to leave. And that was the day he told me that, no, Shirley's not going to be taking over your book. That's not how we do things. And so I had just wasted that entire month toward an endeavor
setting
that,
everything up. And yeah.
that
So
it
what was
didn't
that
pan out that
feeling
way.
like? Because I think a lot of people are in this time now, right? Like I think pandemic has showed a lot of people, right? They want this change in their life, and we're seeing it, we're seeing it everywhere. Like people aren't working at Wendy's anymore, and no one's working at Walmart. And it's not in our grocery stores. It's not that there's not enough food. It's that the supply chain is messed up, right? Like
yes,
there's plenty of all the product. It's just getting the product to the places it needs to go. Because these low level, right? And I know you weren't low level, but some people listening to this might be like, man, I want something different.
Yeah.
Right. I want to change my life from what I'm doing. What advice do you give them?
Well, so first of all, how I felt in that moment was like, my heart was like beating through my chest. I mean, it was like, this was and I, here's the advantage that I had in that moment. Because of the fact that I had been doing all this personal development work, I just really, like, I saw it like this movie, and I just saw this movie, and I just saw myself in like, yep, this is the moment when I kind of saw myself from the future, and I'm like, this is her moment where she had to, and I said, okay. And I just trusted, and I just had
Are you
faith.
single at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was single.
So single, no kids, no nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. No attachments to anything.
Right.
And so I think I maybe had some cats, because I've always had some cats on me. But I was, as a matter of fact, I think I owned a house at that time. So I
so
did
you just took on a lot of debt, and you had a mortgage to pay. So
yes.
So and a lot of people are in this same place. They want something different.
Yeah. But I did decide to sell my house at that time. I said, just in the off chance. So I did decide I'm going to, just, try to be as conscientious with my expenses as possible, be as responsible. I've always been, pretty responsible, but there were some things that like I was doing, which I really kind of felt like an idiot for continuing to do, like later on, because, the debt was
Go ahead. Give me an
still
example. Because
massive.
I think a lot of people think this. They're like, oh my God, it all has to be perfect, right? I made a post the other day. Man, the timing is never right.
Yeah, no, the timing is never right. It really isn't. I mean, I was going out, I was still getting my nails done, and I was still getting, I was still living like I had a 6-figure income. It was hard to like shift that thinking. And I really needed to, and I guess at that time, because of my newbie-ness into the law of attraction, like I believed very consciously that everything was going to work out, but I had not informed my subconscious mind that everything was going to work out. And what ended up happening was, about a year and a half into this process, I was just really working hard. I was like literally staying the night at my office, and, staying up all night, making recordings and working on my website. I mean, what happened was I ended up going into fight or flight, mode, rather than taking the time that I needed to do to continue to invest the time and energy into my personal growth. Everything that I had been, so I wasn't working on my mindset at all. I wasn't working on my belief system. I was just like, from the moment I walked out of there, I was in straight cold fear. And just completely acting from that place, but just not, I was just refusing to do anything else other than just work for myself. My mom even would ask me, it's like, well, don't you want to get a, maybe a part-time job or something? And I'm like, no, because all of the time that I could be working for somebody else is time that I'd be taking away from working on my business. But it would have been a good idea if I had a little reminder, which I did eventually get, that I need to continue to do all the work on my mindset that I had been doing that got me to this point, that gave me the courage to pursue this.
What
And
was the reminder?
so one day, it was just that I had all these bills that were coming due, and I was gathering money. I was raising capital, but I was raising it from my dad, my sister, some of my friends, right? Raising
Venture
capital to
capital
pay my bills. And I was mortified after I got off the phone with a friend. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. Like, this is like, here I was, I had, I had a nice car, I had a nice job, I had a nice house, I could do whatever I wanted. I had all these things. And here I am, I'm begging for money on the phone. And it's like, what the hell? Just why? And that was my breaking point. That was just the moment where I literally fell to the floor crying in shame and disgust and frustration and all those things. And I'm just like, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? And I, kind of started feeling a little bit like a victim. I started feeling like, why is this happening to me? The world is working against me and all these things. And so I started writing, and I just started journaling, and I just started having this conversation with God, the universe, spirit, whatever, and it just kind of came to me. It's like I could kind of almost see myself outside of myself. This is, this is not you. Somehow or another, I slipped into this fight or flight, like I was saying. And I got away from it. I heard that I just kind of heard, that I needed to just get back to doing what I was doing the meditation, doing the hypnosis. I mean, here I was making a living, a bad living, but still selling hypnosis recordings on my website. But was I listening to them?
You weren't doing anything. So you're almost like a fraud.
I was like a fraud. I was literally, and I was like, well, maybe I should try. Maybe I should just, and it wasn't that, it's just, I wasn't making the time for myself. I was just, living this frazzled life. And so that's when I decided, okay, right now, from here on, we're making time to listen to these things. And as soon as I started doing that, it's it gives your mind the space to be creative and to open up and to tap into all the resources inside of you, instead of just you're taking these forced actions to do things that you think, well, maybe this will work. Well, maybe this will work. Well, maybe this will work. And none of those things were working. But when you get into the subconscious mind knows how to do whatever it is that you're working to do, how to create that money. And so I started getting these inspired ideas. I mean, one of those inspired ideas was, at the time I was now into CDs. And so I just heard this idea,
you stepped up, you went from tapes to CDs. All right, let's
right.
go.
And I just heard, have a sale. Oh, okay, that's give people a sense of urgency to buy your stuff. Another idea was, list your stuff on other places like eBay, and then another idea that I had was go and speak at this place and have your products, ready to, do these free events and have your products ready. So I started tapping into these ideas that just bing, they just would come to me just as a result of just quieting down, for a half an hour, maybe an hour a day, and listening to my financial prosperity, my abundance, all of that. When you program your mind for these things, It figures
People think
out
it's
the
woo-woo shit,
details.
right? They think it's woo-woo
Yeah.
shit, but we do it all the time. If what you sit there and listen to or watch or consume is just garbage, right? Then
Yeah.
and you then tend to spit out garbage, right? Like
Exactly.
or just meaningless nothing. You have meaningless conversation, you do meaningless tasks, and it's nothing. But when you just take some time to like put some good input in your head,
Yeah.
then good output starts to come, right?
Yes.
Good
And
output starts to come. And that's kind of, I think that's what you were alluding to a second ago when you're talking about like this law of attraction, right? And I think a
exactly.
lot of people believe in it, but they don't know how to actually harness it. So how do you like to harness it?
So I have I have a whole arsenal of ways to harness the
Okay.
law of attraction.
Give
And
us two. Give us
it's
your
not
top two.
just, so I would say, so number one, harnessing the law of attraction is all about harnessing the power of the subconscious mind. Because, just like I said, all the answers are actually right inside of you. So having that relationship and that understanding with your own subconscious mind, and realizing, it's not like this this genie out in the sky that is granting people's wishes. Those, it is my wish is my command. And so it is all about doing whatever you need to do to get that relationship with your subconscious mind. And that can look like, saying affirmations every day. That can look like journaling every day. I think there's so much power in writing, and I can't even explain exactly what happens, but like when I write things down on a daily consistent basis, like if I write my goals down every single day, they just have a way of happening, and I
Look,
can't
I can't
explain that.
explain any of this, right? Because
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's nothing that you can be like, but just fucking do it, man. That that's how I feel sometimes. Like when you do this,
Yeah.
it just gets better
Yeah. And it's,
because it digs deep into your brain. It digs deep into that subconscious where you don't have to, it's like a skill, right? Like any skill. If you have to think about, okay, I'm on my bike, I hold the handlebars, I put one foot on the pedal, I pedal and push down and lean a little forward. Nope, now I got to, like, it just doesn't happen. This is when you fall. But all of us that know how to
exactly.
ride bikes, we just jump on bikes and our body just takes over, right?
Exactly.
And you don't forget it.
And that's the other thing too, is the subconscious mind is just so powerful and so mysterious, and you don't even have to know the how. And that's where people get really caught up in their goals and their dreams. Like they before they'll even get in touch with why they want to have that, which is the most important question you could ever possibly ask yourself, because the why is where your emotions are. The reason why we want to do anything is because we think that doing or having that thing is going to cause us to feel a certain way. And so what we need to do is ultimately reverse engineer that. We need to feel, it's the feeling, that's ultimately going to send the message into your subconscious mind. The feeling is what penetrates everything into your subconscious mind. So when you feel that way, you're like on a new vibration, you're on a new frequency, and whatever you want that you don't currently have right now is on another frequency. And so you have to align yourself with that frequency. And when you're aligned with that frequency, then it's going to cause you to get at those inspired ideas. It's going to cause you to be that person. It's going to cause you to do new things. If you're constantly in a bad mood, if you're constantly thinking negative things, all you're going to do is just attract more things and more reasons to feel that way. But if you're in the vibe, the feeling of what it is that you want to have, how you would feel if you had that, then it's going to cause you to step in and play the role. You're playing a role of the being who already has that. And eventually, as you play that role, you become it, and you
you start to act it out. If you really believe it.
Yep.
Yeah. If you really, once you really believe it, you start to act it out.
Exactly.
A couple questions that I like to ask everybody. One, I
Sure.
believe everyone has a unique power, something that makes them amazing in the world, that it's not necessarily the thing that makes you a lot of money or famous or anything like that, but it's what you give to the world. And then that causes the world to then give something back to you. What do you think that is for you?
Oh, that is a really good question. Integrity just kind of comes to my mind. I really believe, like, like when it comes to, like, say, my coaching clients, or when it comes to myself, I won't allow somebody to play a smaller role than than they should be playing. I won't let people lie to themselves. Ultimately, I won't let people off the hook. And I think by the fact, and I don't let myself off the hook. I see people as just greater than they see themselves. And so I allow people through that process to live up to the person who can live their dreams.
You say you don't let yourself off the hook. What do you mean?
I don't let myself settle for anything less than what's possible for me, what my full potential. Like, there's just been so many times when things have gotten hard, and and you feel like giving up, you feel like throwing in the towel. But I just have this super discipline, and this super belief, this super knowing that everything is happening for a reason. It's happening for me, not to me. And so I just won't let myself settle.
I love that line. Everything in my life happens for me, not to me, because so many people see it the other way, and then you become a victim. There's no way to land in victim if you don't when you see it, this is happening to me. So
yeah, it's a high level of just taking personal responsibility. Like, how did I create this? And if I'm not happy with it, whether I'm happy or unhappy with the results, it's like, how did I create this? Because when you know that you're the one that's creating your reality, then you can do something about it. And if you don't think that you're creating your reality, then you're just going to be stuck there.
You're fucked.
Because
if someone else is doing it to you, you're fucked. You have no, if you're making my life terrible and I can't get you out of my life, I'm fucked.
Yeah, and there's no way to live.
Right, for sure. Last question is, I always ask this to everyone, and why are you sitting here right now doing this? Because, like, you seem like you have so many things going on, right? You have your clients, your books, and, like, what I say is, this isn't going to get you one client probably. Right. And maybe if it does, it gets you one. It doesn't blow up your star, this podcast, right? Like, I'm just not big enough yet. Yeah. So why take the time out of your day when you're so busy and doing so many things to talk to some dude that you've never met on before, and that when you Google him on the internet, it probably doesn't really look like your avatar?
That is no one's ever asked me that before. I really just get a joy out of talking to new people, even if it's just you and me having this conversation. I just enjoy educating people on this topic. I love talking about this topic. And if I can, help one person out there, even, and, even my audience will hear it. It's just, I just, and it's just another opportunity to talk about something that I really enjoy talking about. I love this topic. I love talking about personal growth. I love helping people change their lives. And, who knows, maybe you were even impacted by something that, that I said, and that just gives me a wonderful feeling.
I think a lot of people, the reason I ask the question is everyone thinks like, man, I need an ROI. Right. I need an ROI on everything that I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know where the ROI comes from. Sometimes it is financial, right? Sometimes you go do something and it's this financial ROI and you get money. And sometimes it's personal and it makes you feel good. And then it makes you feel good in a way that you can then go work harder. And that's the ROI. Like you can't, it's so impossible to tie, ROIs to every single thing we do with our life.
You know what? I want to speak to that for a second too,
Yeah.
because it's really interesting. I'll be totally honest with you. I have no idea what my ROI is on anything. I mean, that is, and it's a little frustrating because sometimes it makes it hard to like duplicate things. And, everybody wants the, automated, predictable, growing income stream, knowing exactly how to, and it doesn't always work out that way. And I remember when I very, very, very first started out as the hypnotist in this business, I watched this videotape, and it was this videotape by the late, great Jerry Kine. And he, it was a marketing thing, and it was a videotape, like I said, it's a marketing thing. And he said, what you need to do is you need to get yourself a good pair of shoes and a brochure, and you need to walk up and down the street and start handing businesses your brochure. And so I tried that, and I went out one day and I just, up and down the street. I had the shoes already. And I started talking to businesses, and I didn't get one client that way. But when I got back to my office, there were people that had left messages for me, that had called me from the Yellow Pages ads and from other ads that I had that weren't calling me before. And so to me, the more energy and the more giving you put out there, the universe rewards that some other way. It's like this law of, reciprocity. And so whatever you put out there, the universe gives back to you. And it's not always through the exact channel that you have put that energy into.
We have this really amazing story, and it literally just happened for us at the beginning of this year. So my business is, I own martial arts schools, okay, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, and that's what I do for a living.
Cool.
Other than this, and we have this funny story that at one of our schools, the general manager misheard us, and this was like literally 15 years ago, and rented a booth at a mall. And not only did we have to pay $25,000 for the booth to have, like, because it was 6 months. He thought it was 1 month, and he ended up signing a 6-month contract.
Oh my goodness.
We also had to staff it with our employees and pay the employee to staff it. Man, it was terrible. It's not like we laugh about it now, as this like thing, like, look, you're going to mess up and yada, yada. Well, 15 years later, in February, I think, we're giving this guy a black belt, and we have no clue. And he's a doctor. He's a child oncologist, right? So he sees horrible shit. And he's up there talking about how jiu-jitsu helps him with that. And like how he's it, and he's like, and man, if I never would have walked past that booth in the Park Meadows Mall, and we're just like, oh my God. And it just, all of a sudden, all of it became worth it, right? Like the whole $30,000 just became worth it. It's like we changed his life, and then he was able to go change other people's lives. And I don't know, he paid $150 for a decade, a month.
Yeah.
Right. So we got close to an actual ROI, maybe.
Yeah.
But like the actual ROI of change, of like life-changing things, man, I'll spend another 30 grand right now if that's what we get to go do. So
absolutely,
it's a really interesting thing, this idea of ROI.
It really is. And yeah, I think so much of it is just, it's intention. And, if you're putting the intention out there into the universe, it may not come back exactly in the way that you imagine it's going to, but it will come back to you eventually.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's an interesting thing. Sometimes I think about it, I'm like, man, I could work so much less and I wouldn't make any different money. Like my money would actually stay the same. Maybe 1,000 here or 1,000 there, but nothing like of significance that would like change my whole life. But fuck it, what would I do all day? Like I don't know what I would do all day. So like, forget the ROI. I'll just go work because I love it. So. And that's why
Yeah.
I do the podcast. I love to just talk to people. Mine's the same as you. I love to
Yeah.
talk to people, and who knows what comes? Who knows what comes out of it? So
You never know. You absolutely
you
never
never
know
know.
who's going to hear it, who's going to hear it and who's, and ultimately I'm just hoping that somebody out there, some entrepreneur is listening to this, or some wanted, would be entrepreneur that just hasn't taken that leap of faith yet. And they hear that, well, you know what, as long as you believe in yourself and you just continue to take steps forward, and it just doesn't matter what you have to go through, because, you're going to go through some shit. I mean, that's just, it's not perfect. And, there isn't like a direct path that no one has a direct path. It goes up, it goes down. It's like the stock market, but
Right.
it does kind of, ultimately lead to success. And hopefully somebody out there is hearing this and saying, you know what? Yeah, it's time. It's my time.
Yeah, for sure. Look, when we saw that we owed $30,000, it was a problem. It
Yeah.
was a problem. It wasn't like, oh, all right, whatever. It wasn't like a $500 bill. You're like, oh my God, 30,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you figured it out. That was 15 years ago and we're still kicking. So
Yes.
you figure it out. And that is what true business ownership and entrepreneurship is like, so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Victoria, tell everyone where they can get all your stuff, your books, your coaching, all of that. Where's the best place to reach out to you?
Yeah. So the whole, culmination of everything is at victoriamgallagher.com. So if you go there, you'll be able to, and my app, HypnoCloud is also life-changing. So you can get my books, my coaching, my app, HypnoCloud. You could search for HypnoCloud right now, and it's a free app. Download it on the App Store. We are getting ready to rebrand. And so one of these days you'll listen back to this podcast. It will no longer be called HypnoCloud, but I'm sure you'll still be able to find it that way.
Sure. So guys, as always, first of all, thank you, Victoria, for coming on. And for everyone listening, as always,
thank you for having me.
Yes. Victoria has her own unique and special power, and I have my own unique and special power that I do. Don't go out in the world and try to be Victoria. Don't go out in the world and try to be me. Please go out there and find your own power.
I agree. Everyone has their own power.